What's up, everyone? It's me and Beth. We're back here again. Today we got Mr. AJ from the farm, which is an online kind of e-commerce store where you get to connect completely to the farmers. We touch on a lot today, from homeschooling to about the quality of meat to healthy diets. It's a great interview. I hope you guys love it. We'll see you inside. How we doing, Mr. AJ? You ready for
Doing
this?
well. Yeah, looking forward to it,
All right.
David.
I'm glad you got together with us. So, if you could, just for people that don't know, give us a little bit of background about who you are, little bit of who you are, and then what all. I know we talked a little bit, and you said God gave you the vision in 2020 about
Yeah.
what you guys are doing with from the farm.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a husband of 20, almost 23 years now, and I have
Love it.
three amazing daughters. Um, and yeah, I'm from a place called St. George, Utah, outside of Zion National Park. My family are five generations of ranchers. So they homesteaded we call it the Arizona Strip. It's a piece of Arizona that's cut off from the south of Arizona by the Grand Canyon. So you get there from Utah.
No
And
way.
yep, so they went out there in horse and wagon in 1916 and kind of staked their claim in this rough country and started homesteading back then. And they've been ranching in that same area ever since. Um, and so, yeah, I served in the military, and then after the military, it's time to build a life and try a lot of different things. And then in 2020, when COVID started, right before 2020, I started selling beef for one of my family's ranches. I say one
Okay.
of because we have a family reunion every year on the 4th of July, and there are 1,100 of us. That's the
No way.
posterity. Yep,
No
that's the
way.
posterity from 1916 till now. There's 1,100 of us that get together every year, and
That's amazing.
yeah, and so started selling beef for one of their ranches, and that was doing well. And then COVID hit, and our supply chain crumbled, and that then God inspired me to build this thing we have now called From the Farm, which is the way I describe it. It's either the Etsy or the Airbnb of local food, of connecting with your local farmers and ranchers directly.
Dude, I love that, man. What a blessing it is too, because what you're doing, you're working and you're actually making like a real impact, getting people real food from the farm. We know what goes on in the grocery stores is big box chains, man. So that's absolutely amazing. And that's sick too. Five generations. You guys got 1,100 people at the I thought my family was
Yeah.
big. We have family reunions.
Yeah.
Dude, 1,100, man. That's amazing. All
Yeah,
right.
it's awesome.
So really, what would it like? So if one of our like families are kind of interested in it, how do they go about? Is it like a subscription thing? Is it like a website? I know you said it's like an Airbnb, Etsy kind of thing, or is you
Yep.
just kind of making a connection and then they kind of do everything else off to the side?
Yeah, good question. In order to get large scale adoption for people to go direct, we had to make it as easy as anything else, right? We are kind of conditioned for convenience. And so it is an e-commerce platform. So when you go on there, all of the stores that are there are actually run and managed by the farmers themselves, just like Etsy. And then when you buy, you can check out right there on the website and have it either delivered, or if you find somebody close to you, you can, some of them will arrange a pickup location. Sometimes it might even be on-farm pickup. Really is up to the individual farmer or rancher and how they need to run their operation.
Man, that is absolutely sick. All right, so how
Yeah.
many farmers and ranchers do you guys have on there right now?
We're at about 100 producers in 35 states.
Okay.
It's been a challenge because they're busy, and so trying to connect with them, with their lifestyle, and then show them we're not like all the others that have come before us is also a challenge. You people get burned and then they just think everybody's the same as everybody else. So the other side of that too is, when God put this on our heart, He also said you can't sell it, you can't lose control, because the reason we're in the position we are now is big corporations have controlled the food supply chain, and as those corporations have evolved, they have done what's best for them and not what's best for the producers and the people. And so, we've had venture capital and we've had private equity interested in helping us scale, and we've had to say no, even though we need it, because we have designed this in a way where the farmers and ranchers keep 100% of the retail dollar for food. And
No way, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not easy. We've had, because then that's forced us over the years to learn how else we can bring in revenue without taking it from the food dollar to make sure that they can succeed. And my fear is that if we bring the wrong partners in, especially a private equity or venture capital where their intentions are just to flip it and get money, they'll look at the traffic that we are able to drive to the platform and the sales we're bringing and say, "Hey, we're making these guys all this money. Let's just take 5%." And then 20 years down the road, it's now, 75-25, and we've now
Yep.
ruined the opportunity to build a marketplace that serves the producers first, the consumers second, and then us third.
Dude, that's crazy, man. I mean, coming
Yeah.
from your background though, it has to hit kind of close to home, knowing because I know with my family that are in farming, it's not an easy life, but also the margins are very hard to like capture. And then by
Yeah.
you doing that, it's you're not only said you're helping the producers first, which I think is going to make a bigger difference in our society because it allows them to make more of a profit to produce a better quality food that they're serving the
Yes.
consumers. We had an interview a couple weeks ago with a guy who runs agrogamy. It's like a this like vertical growing thing for like
Uh-huh.
and he was in organic farming before and the same thing they came in and they absolutely ruined it. They said
Yep.
like, they changed organic like standards. They went in it just all became about profits. And then after that, he's like, I had to get out and start this because I just couldn't sleep at night knowing that I'm selling organic strawberries that are being sprayed with all of this different stuff. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see that you guys are on the right side of it for the meat. Now you guys work with just beef, or do you guys do anything else other than that? How does that all work?
We're all farm products. We have
Okay.
mostly beef because it's what I knew to start with. It's where I come from, but we've got produce on there. We've got dairy.
No
We have
way.
we have cottage makers now and selling, sourdough and different things like that. Somebody's even selling donkey milk, which I didn't know was a thing, but I guess you can milk a donkey, and so
I'm
they're
gonna have
selling that on there.
I'm gonna have to tell my sister she's got the donkeys behind her house. We gotta start milking them.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah, they may be
Man.
curious of what y'all are up to, but yeah, so
So
I mean, yeah, it's cool.
dude, that's amazing. So you guys kind of have anything to do with the farm when you guys are there. Now, do you guys
Yep.
have specific states you're working with right now, or is it like a direct to consumer where they will ship it out, or do you have to be within the same
Yeah.
state locally?
That's a great question. So we do have, we're in 35 states, and the producers, depending on, like on the meat side, depending on, well, I guess in all food side, it depends on the state's laws. So
Okay,
like in the state of Wyoming, we've got really strong food freedom laws, which means anything that's like grown or made in Wyoming can be sold to Wyomingites. And the state's like, we're out of it. It's up to you guys.
okay,
Um, Now, there's different processing facilities. There's USDA for
hmm
on the meat side. There's a USDA processing facility. Then there's a state processing facility, and then there's custom. If it's custom, that animal has to be sold before it's processed because they mark it not for sale. So
okay,
if I
okay,
have one and I'm getting it processed at a custom facility for you, you already have to own it, and then it can be processed. In fact, in many states, I could process it for you once you own it if that's what you wanted. If it's a state facility, you can sell it after it's been processed anywhere within the state. And if it's
okay,
USDA, then you can sell it and ship it anywhere you want across the country. Now, right now, there's some work being done at the federal level to try to approve state facilities for e-commerce. Because the question is, well, what's the difference if I drive across the state line and buy it from this facility across the state line and drive it home? If I'm still the buyer and I buy it online, why can't I just have them send it to me? So they're working on that, seeing if we can get it done. It really needs to be done because we have so few processing facilities left
yeah,
that we need to open up some sort of approval for that while also maintaining food safety in some sense. Now, I will say that even your custom facilities, these are individual families. Most cases, they are more concerned about the efficacy and the quality than large corporate facilities. I mean, anytime you hear about food recalls, they came out of a large USDA facility, food that's
yep,
making people sick and even killing them. Whereas the small family run facility, they're putting their personal name on that. So
Yes, sir.
they're, just as much, if not more concerned about the quality that's coming out of there. So we just, because of the state of where we're in, we really need something like that to be changed and more facilities to be built.
That's my next question. If you think they were to make that change, do you think you would start seeing more? Because I know where we get our cow from, it's in Holly Hill, Kentucky. It's a family friend who has a farm up there, and the guy who does all the processing, he's booked out for like a year, bro. Like he can't take on any more business. Like it's
Yeah.
but he's not into scaling or anything like that. It's just like his family owned thing. So you think if they would make that change, that would kind of open up an opportunity for more people to come in and start doing it?
It would open up more people to be able to buy, but
Okay.
what we need is for consumers to make behavior changes on where they get their food. Because during the last administration, they made $60 million available for new processing facilities to be built or existing facilities to be expanded. And a lot of them built because a lot of folks saw what was happening during COVID and were
Yep.
worried. And so they got involved. Well, then they went bankrupt because consumers didn't know that they could go and get it locally. That behavior didn't change. And so right now, I work pretty closely with our Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. I'm not an expert. My job is to bring the experts to her,
Okay.
just congregate people that need to be heard. And one of the things I keep appealing to them about is if you do this again, like the last administration, it'll be a boom and bust. There has to be education on the other side of that, educating the consumers at a very large scale that, hey, you do not have to go to the local grocery store. You can buy from these local processing facilities, from these local farmers and ranchers. And then that's what will start fixing the food supply chain. The consumers have the power. It's in, that's why they say vote with your dollar. The power
Yep.
is in where you spend your money.
Yes, sir. So what are a couple ways you think that we could go about actually educating the consumer? Like I know having conversations like this, but is there anything that you think as a nation we can do maybe to where we can really I don't think people understand that vote with your dollar. They don't really take it as literally as it is. So what do you think we can do to kind of educate these people and make them understand that, hey, not only are you getting away from the USDA where those big recalls are coming from, you're supporting a family owned business most likely, but you're actually going to get high quality meat and you're getting kind of the power back in your favor. What can we do you think?
Yeah. National campaigns through social media would be
Okay.
very helpful, right? And then teaching the kids at schools or at the childhood level,
I love that.
because during COVID, they actually did a study. I think it was in New York when the store shelves were empty or limited. They actually did a study and asked kids, if they knew where their food came from. And most kids just thought the grocery stores made it. So they were confused. They're like, why is there food shortages? Why don't they just make more?
Yeah.
So they think it comes out of a package
That's
because
insane.
the education isn't being done. I mean, it wasn't very long ago. Like a good example is buying a cow share, which is a larger volume. So you have a whole animal, you can buy a whole animal, a half an animal, or a quarter. And it was only a generation ago, our grandparents all knew how to order a side of beef.
Yep.
Now that's a 1 hour conversation if you're selling a quarter beef because people don't know what comes in a quarter beef. They're like, okay, I'm buying 100 pounds. What is that? How many
Yeah.
steaks do I get? How much roast? How much ground beef? That information has been lost. And it's just because it's no longer being taught. So reteaching kids at the school levels, all the way from elementary, in whatever form that they can absorb at their age, all the way up through high school and college would be very effective.
Hang on one second. What's up?
Yeah.
What? It's not it's tomorrow. Uh No, and it's also they've been conditioned. That's all they know is to roll into that school or not school to that store, and they think it's just there. And I saw something where it's like if we were to have where everything goes out, there's like 3 days before total chaos because those stores aren't. They're not stock. There's not a warehouse there. It's just what they
That's
have.
right.
So I kind of would like people to get back to not only growing their own, if possible, their own things, but at least at me in the middle, getting the power back to hey, I know exactly if I'm ordering this cow because that's what we do as a family. Like we split it, and then
Yep.
it's higher quality meat. The steaks, I mean, are way better than any steakhouse around me. And on top of that, too, it's like the grocery store is a profit driven. They're working on 1% margins, grocery stores. You know what I mean? So they're going
Yep.
to do whatever they can possibly do to get it on the shelf, make it stay there as long as possible, and then get into it. So besides like the social media campaigns, what do you think as far as like educating parents when it comes to teaching their own kids? Because I mean, the school system in my mind, we're a homeschooling organization. Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of broken. So when it comes to educating parents, do you think that's another route we could kind of go to where it's
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the food is nutrition side of the conversation, right? The parents, we used to spend 30% of our budget on food and 8% on healthcare. And now we spend 6% of our budget on food because highly processed food is taken over,
no
even when I
way?
was for a long time, even when I was growing up, that's when it started coming into play was, my mom was I mean, you got both parents now out of the house. They've got to go work two jobs just to make the house work. And so then, everybody's tired. So what kind of food prep is being done? That all leads into that. So re-educating the parents on, look, saturated fats are actually good for you. They lied to us when they changed the food pyramid. It was complete control.
Yep.
You know, we need to get back to saturated fats. Your kids need that to fuel their brains. That saturated fat is fuel for the brain. It'll help them develop more. It'll help with their education. But teaching them how to do that, cooking classes, reteaching parents. One of the misconceptions is that buying local is more expensive. It's not actually, because when
No.
you prepare a meal at home, a lot of times, especially if you use a ground beef and making a big pot of something, that ground beef is going to now last 2 meals. You're going to end up having leftovers. So you're actually way less buying, even if you're spending 10 pounds on a pound of ground beef, $10 on a pound of ground beef. If you get 2 meals out of that with, pasta or whatever else that you mix that with, you've got leftovers. You actually fed your family 2 meals for that $10 ground beef. And even local produce that might be, more money than at the grocery store. When you put all these ingredients together, you actually expand how much you're feeding your family. Even if it's only, lunch for dad to take to work the next day, that's still money he doesn't have to spend when he goes
Yep.
to work for lunch. So re-educating the parents on the whole picture, but then also to the price conversation for parents to know as well, back to the 30% of food budget where it was only 8% on healthcare, you're going to pay for it later. You're going to pay for it. There's a saying, pay the farmer now or pay pharma later. And
Never
just,
heard that.
yeah, just as our world is going, we're going to end up, typically, most people are going to end up working later in their life. But if you're broke down, if your body is not functioning, and you become dependent on a system of you know federal money helping you live because you don't have the functioning human body to go out and earn your own revenue, you're you're in a much worse position then as you get older, and you're losing money now because you don't have the physical capacity to go and work and earn and do things like that. So,
No, that's so true. And then when it comes to, since we're kind of on that health topic, now you grew up in a family of ranchers and all. You kind of touched on it a little bit. There's a lot of misconceptions going around right now when it comes to diet. Um, I personally eat mostly red meat.
mhm.
You got anything as far as where it comes with like some evidence of like how good it actually is for you compared to the like maybe the vegan or the vegetarian? Well, maybe it works for some
Yeah.
people. I do know that there are some like vitamins and minerals that people are missing out on. Do you have
Yep.
anything on law? Could you expand on that at all?
Yeah, I don't have any hard data, just what I've learned meeting folks. I have met in this line of work, I have met so many people who have tried being vegan or vegetarian for a long period of time because it was a fad
Yep.
and they were not well. And, not just physically, but even mentally. They've told me, "Meg, when I started eating meat again, that it was like this cloud that lifted." And so there's a lot of evidence for the value of meat in your diet. And then just look at the carnivore diet. That's actually a conversation that's happening with people I bring to Washington about how to help educate people on meat is like point to the carnivore diet. If you're and carnivore doesn't work for everybody, and maybe it's like intermittent or whatever, but there you get all of the essential nutrients that you need out of red meat.
Yep.
And so red meat is the only, from what I can see and have heard, is the only single source food that you can sustain life on without needing anything else. And we've seen that through many. I mean, I got a few friends that have gone carnivore in their later years. They're in their 70s and they're
Oh, wow.
Greek gods now because they're just like all protein. They're jacked. They're feeling good. All of their scores from the doctor are showing like they're just crushing it. And so I think a heavy protein diet is essential. And now, if it's the right protein, if the animal's fed the right way, I've seen actual reports of essential and non-essential amino acids being 65% higher in grass-fed and finished or regenerative specifically meat,
No way.
75% higher in phytonutrients, and the omega 6 to 3 ratios are perfect because the animal, this is what people don't know yet, and hopefully with this education as it grows, healthy soil leads to healthy forage leads to a healthy animal, and the healthy meat of that animal leads to a healthy human being. God knew what he was doing when he created this before we messed it up. All of those things line up to edify this body that we have. And it's even in scripture that the beasts of the world are for us to consume.
Yep.
I mean, he knew what he was doing. And so when we take that whole concept into focus, that's where we need to get back to so that people know. If you buy a cow that's been finished on grain for more than 90 days, excuse me, more than 120 days, more than, 3 months, what happens is that corn and grain start changing the omega 3 to 6 ratio profile and even starts flushing out those essential nutrients. And it now becomes an inflamed diet. Because if you think about it, it's like us humans. If all I did was eat carbs, I'm going to put on a whole bunch of weight.
Yes,
So,
sir.
but that's by design because the big system we have is what they've been trying to do is how can they take a calf to finish as fast as possible for profit? And so now they're finishing animals at 18 months. They're calves. They're a year and a half old, and they've gotten to put so much weight on them that now they can process them and sell them in the supply chain. But that's essentially an obese animal,
Yep.
and now you're consuming that, and so you're not getting the nutrients you need. We wouldn't need pharmaceutical fish oil supplements if we ate regenerative beef because you're only taking pharmaceutical fish oils because of the omega 3s because we're not getting omega 3s in our diet. If you own like a lot of hunters, they like I eat elk, that's all. My freezer's clear full of elk. They don't need omega 3s because they're getting that out of the meat they consume from these wild animals.
Man, that's crazy. There's two things I want to say to kind of just back up what you just kind of said there. So first, Saturday night was my girlfriend's birthday. So we went out and she's her business partner. We were having a conversation. He was telling me how he went vegan during COVID actually, and he went for 3 years, him, his wife, and his daughter. And so I was talking to him and I asked him, I was like, okay, what are you seeing now? Like a change now that you're eating meat again? He said the biggest thing is the mental fog is completely gone. He's like,
Yeah.
I was waking up and I was going about my day with like I was pretty much sick the whole entire time. Like when you're sick and you kind of just going through the motions, you don't really remember. He's like, my brain is clearer now. He's like, I'm sharper. He plays chess. He's like, when I play chess, like I'm a better chess player again. Um, and then two, I have a friend who I work out with, and her brother owns a pretty big cattle farm, but they supply Whole Foods. And
Yeah.
somehow they're able to say it's a grass fed cow, but they're only grass fed for the last 2 weeks of their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe like 2 weeks isn't the right time frame, but it's like a short period of time. But now at Whole Foods, it's labeled as like grass fed. So are there any kind of like I don't know what they would be called. Like,
Label laws.
okay, label. Okay, so is there anything
Yep.
that people can look for to understand if this thing has actually been like you said, over consumed with the corn to make it fat, or if it even says grass fed, is there any way that we can kind of bypass that to kind of check for ourselves before we're buying it?
Yeah, so that's the problem with these labels is they call it greenwashing, just like we talked about with the certified organic movement. They
Okay.
greenwashed it. The big corporations found ways to manipulate the folks that were making those regulations, whether they paid them off or whatever, bribery or who knows. But that's what happened. And so that's a part of why we are doing what we're doing it from the farm is if you can go directly to the farmer and rancher and ask them. Now you have to become educated on what to ask,
Yep.
but if you do know that, have that knowledge, you can say, are these grass fed and finished?
Okay.
And are you feeding it its whole life on grass, or is there any corn and grain offered? A lot of times, farmers will offer free choice grain and corn, which I actually don't have a problem with. The Bionutrient Health Institute at a Utah State University did some research, and actually, some corn and grain can actually increase vitamin K and not flush out all of the good nutrients. But
Okay.
that's where the education comes in. Um, but that's specifically on the label grass fed and finished. You're not allowed to put those terms on there, but that's how they manipulated it. They can say, what they changed was you can say grass fed if it was on grass at any point in its life. So they might even be able to grass fed up until they go to the feedlot. Well, it was grass fed, but we finished it on corn and grain to fatten it. Now,
That's
the
crazy.
counter the counter to that is some people's palate. Our palates have been changed. So when you eat a grass-fed and finished animal, people are like, "Oh, it's so gamey, I can't eat it." If you're a
Yeah.
hunter, you're like, "Well, that's kind of what elk is like."
That's
But it's our palates that have changed, not the nutritional value.
okay.
Now, aging the animal when they process it and they hang it in the cooler for a certain amount of time, that changes the flavor profile. So if you have a grass-fed and finished animal, hanging it for 21 days, they call it dry aging, will
Mhm.
start to change the flavor profile so it's not so gamey. You've also got what I've learned too is the more species of grass that animal has to eat, like in the regenerative side, if they're eating a diversity of forage, that also changes the flavor profile. So if that animal's only eating like one species, like alfalfa, to finish it out or whatever, it's probably going to taste a little gamey versus animals that I've eaten that are eating 18 species of grasses. The flavor profile is different, and so
Way.
see, this is where that education component comes in. Like this is not stuff that people have ever even heard or know about. So, but the flavor profile, when you finish an animal on corn and grain, everybody kind of likes that sweet, buttery, flat, fat flavor. That's because the corn and grain puts that in there, and you've got all that intermuscular fat, all that marbling, and that changes that. Now, even gets more complicated because then you've got the breed of cow, Wagyu beef. The fat in Wagyu is different even than the fat in like Angus. It's got a higher linoleic fat is what they call it, uh, and that tastes a little bit different than fat from a different animal. So there's kind of a lot to it, but that's where I mean, this is what I tell people. Listen, you need three things that are essential for human life. It's food and water, shelter, and safety, right? That's what makes a good community, a good tribe.
Yep.
Food, water, shelter, safety. But the most basic needs for us as humans is what we're consuming. And we have allowed corporations to take that over for us. We need to take full responsibility as human beings for edifying the body that God gave us to navigate through this world. And it starts with what we're eating. So if you are scrolling through TikTok all night and not taking time to educate yourself on your food and how it helps your body, we reap the percussions of our ignorance as consumers because we're not willing to teach ourselves what matters. So time should be spent really understanding this aspect of human life, which is the food we eat.
Which is so crazy that we have to educate people on this because you think everybody would be super interested, super passionate about figuring out. Because, like you said, God created us perfectly. Why are we differentiating off the path and going a different way? And now that we are, why are we not trying to get right back to where we should be? Now you said two questions during that. You said, is it grass fed, grass finished, and did they eat grass their whole entire life? Are there any other questions that the parents that are watching this that they could ask if they're going to their farmer to make sure it's good quality meat?
Yeah. Another one common is does it have any hormones or antibiotics?
Okay.
Um, according to the rules, if it's given antibiotics, they have to be kept off of that for a certain amount of time before it's processed. I have read studies that there are still trace amounts of antibiotics or hormones that can disrupt us. But I've also read studies that say that after a certain amount of time they are gone. So that's for the individual
Okay.
person to decide for themselves because I can't give you a definite on that. But no hormones, no antibiotics is a big one. In the discussion on herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, specifically glyphosate,
Yeah.
we had a meeting with the secretary and some scientists and researchers that are doing this on a very large scale. And I asked one of them, if the animal's eating corn or grain that's been treated with glyphosate. I've actually asked two different guys and I've gotten two different answers. So again, it's for the consumer to know. But um, if they eat corn that's sprayed with glyphosate or grain that's sprayed with glyphosate, does that transfer into the meat? One guy said no, the other guy said yes, and I'm just like, well, can I get a straight answer? Now the good news on that is there's this company, one of the guys we took out there for this meeting, this food is medicine meeting in DC, owns a company called Edacious.
Okay.
And Edacious is now, you can send your meat in and they can test it for the nutritional value and now any free radicals that are in there that's not supposed to be, that you don't want to consume. So what I'm excited about is getting away from manipulated labels and being able to just have the factual data to say we tested it, here's where the nutritional value is, and no, there's nothing in it, or there are some trace amounts in it. Now if there's trace amounts, I'll just tell you, for me personally, I do everything else in my life to be super healthy. I'm less concerned if there's trace elements of glyphosate and other things in there, because for one, our food supply has a long way to go before that's not the case. And as
Yep.
and I feel like the human body has this really profound way to take care of itself if we're giving it every possible opportunity to be healthy. So if I'm eating meat that might have been fed a little bit of corn or grain at the end and might have had some glyphosate in it, um, and purists are going to hate me for saying this, so I'm just telling you what AJ does.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
less concerned about that because I'm doing everything else possible to be super healthy. So if there's a trace element, but we're not eating grain that way because grain's going to have a heavier load.
Yep.
And so we buy, organic grain or regeneratively raised grain. And when my wife makes bread or stuff at home, we know that's pure. So the toxic load, I would say, is way low. So if I'm getting a little bit of that from my beef because that's my only option, or that's not made it into that part of the supply chain yet, I'm far less worried about that personally.
No, and I actually have been affected by it. I got leaky gut syndrome. I
Yeah.
would want to say, shoot, maybe like 6 years ago, and that's kind of what started my education on it. And that's when I got into like, oh wow, like red meat's like what I need. Like this is
Yep.
what I need here. But also it's in, like you said, it's in the grain, it's on all the fruits and veggies. But to go even deeper, you said that thing about the healthy soil, it's killing everything
Yep.
inside of the soil that's making, which is supposed to make the soil rich, and then it's dripping into our water supply. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I know from firsthand, it wasn't until I started becoming like conscious about like eating a way more red meat. Now our meat, it's they would I would probably say fall in the standards of yours. Like it's not going to be zero glyphosate in it, but the purer the meat, focusing and educating myself, like I completely transformed my stomach back to where I feel like I'm completely healthy again,
Yeah.
simply by just focusing on like, oh wow, this one product here is what did it to me, I think. Let me go hard on trying to get to as minimal as possible. And like I said, I completely, from my point of view, now I'm not a doctor, I don't know what's
Yep.
going on, but I completely feel like I've got my stomach back to where it's supposed to be, got that lining back. And it's weird
Yeah.
that, again, the supply chain is going through this because when I was looking at it, and this was a couple years when I was going hard with my studies, there was countless studies showing what this does, yet it's still being pumped and sprayed and just nobody's out there caring about it.
Yeah.
So because we focus on homeschooling families, we kind of touched on a couple points itself already, but what are some things I know, like working out, but what are some things you think homeschooling families can do to make sure, whether it's like reading books, listening to podcasts, but kind of engulfing their kids into this mindset? So A, when they become adults, they're on the right track, they're healthy, they're happier, but also that next generation that's going to come after them is getting reinstalled into them to where we don't have this gap like we did to where the knowledge is completely lost.
Yeah. We homeschool our two youngest, and
Okay. Okay.
so very familiar with this the value of that as parents. My oldest is 21 now, and we see a big difference in her quality of life now that she's in the workforce, having been trained by the public education system versus what we're doing with our kids. So because you have the flexibility to do these kinds of things, go on farm tours, and
Okay.
don't just limit it to, I would say, don't just limit it to the one operation or the operations that are doing regenerative. Let them see how anybody in your area is doing it. Take them to a large scale, you know, feeding operation, and let them kind of develop their own way to think about it from that experience. Show them, and then you can leave and be like, look, which do you think is better, the cow that's out in the fields with all the green grass, or the one that's standing on a mountain of manure?
Yep.
And just let them see that. The other thing I would say too is, I have a friend who created this curriculum for self-development, and it's
Okay.
how the mind works. It's, Tommy says this about me. What does that mean about what? How do I interpret that in my own mind? And, it might be like we teach our kids, well, Tommy might have some problems going on at home. So what Tommy says about you actually has nothing to do with you. But this curriculum is self-development for their minds, so they can have the freedom to think for themselves, right? Homeschool does a really good job with that as it is, but putting this really, for us, adding this curricula into their training outside of the basics of math and English and whatever else. Now when they're being fed all this information through marketing and social media, at least with that training, they can filter out for themselves what's real or what's not, right? Teaches them to think openly. And so, yeah, given kids real world experiences in the homeschool, to let them see how these things are done, taking them and taking them to watch a harvest is really important. Letting them see that whole process. I mean, I ran a USDA slaughterhouse as part of my research and development for what I'm doing now. And the amount of people we would have visit that didn't want to see the kill floor, they wanted to just turn a blind eye. You know,
Crazy.
life a life has to be taken for a life to thrive in the entire ecosystem of nature, right? When we die and get put in the ground, we're being eaten by the microbes to turn that into soil,
Yep.
and to do this whole cycle of life. And so for people to not be willing to see that full process, I think is a travesty. And I get it. It's very humbling to watch an animal be put down and then go through the whole process of cleaning it and skinning it and all of those things that are necessary. But that's life. That's what life takes. I had my brother came to the processing facility once, and he walked in and he goes, "Oh man, it smells," because it does have a smell. And he goes, "Smells like death." And I said, "I want to invite you to reconsider how you describe that." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Because to me, that smells like sacrifice." And the distinction is different, right? Doesn't mean it smells better. It's just how we're framing it in our mind. The smell of death is different than the smell of sacrifice. It puts a different energy on what's happening. Like, this is just what is part of the process. Um, I would say to start with a field harvest. Don't go into a slaughterhouse, go to a field harvest. That's one of the most ethical processes I've ever been a part of. The animal standing there has no idea what's happening. I mean, I've told people, I wish I didn't know what a gun was because that's how I would want to go. The animal's just standing there looking at you, chewing its cud in 1 second, and then in a split second, it's gone.
Yep.
Like that is the most ethical way to process an animal. We can't do that at scale, but it really is a humbling process. So let your kids be exposed to that. We process our own meat birds. And when we not first started doing, we've done it for 3 or 4 years now. Every time, that process of killing the animal and processing it is not easy, but we pray and we ask God to, we thank God for the sacrifice of the chickens, for allowing us to put this food on our table. We acknowledge the uncomfortableness of taking the life, but but also acknowledging that this is what part of being alive is. And, this next year we'll do it a little bit. I'll do it better as a dad. I said my own prayer quietly. Then after we were talking, I found out my wife said her own prayer. My daughter said their own prayer because we were all feeling uncomfortable. So I'll take better leadership next year and we'll do it as a family, But I was so humbled to hear them also say, "Yeah, I prayed too," and I was like, "Oh man, what a special moment to be together to do this."
Which is
So
what it's like you already said, it's putting a different energy around it. But those same people that want to turn a blind eye have no problem going to the grocery store and
yes,
picking up some chicken that's factory farmed, which is
yep,
way worse, you know what I mean? Compared to just understand that this is a part of life. It's in the Bible. Like you said,
yep.
it has to be done. So it's just weird that people are more comfortable going to the store buying a factory farm meat that had a way worse life all throughout. The way it was killed was way worse. There was no prayer. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Compared to just going through to it. So I encourage them, like you said, to actually go experience what's that's like. What's been since you're a homeschooling dad, I think Miss Beth told me that at the beginning, but I kind of forgot. What's been your experience so far that you guys have seen that kind of different from what your daughter went through with the public school education?
Yeah, adaptability, right? Like we did go through a period of time where the structural education system was what was sold to us because there was this linear path, get a good education, go get a good job and make money. And our world is changing so much
Doesn't apply.
that it does not apply. I think entrepreneurship or the ability to think freely is going to carry kids much further moving forward because they can adapt. And so that's been the biggest thing I've noticed. Also, before we pulled our kids out of school, because we just weren't in a position to homeschool, for a while, and I certainly empathize and understand that when both parents have to work, it's just not feasible. And we wanted to homeschool for a long time, we just couldn't. But I would go to the teachers and I would tell the teachers in parent teacher meetings, do not talk to me about my kids' grades. I don't care. They did not like me because because I told them, I said, I dropped out of school my senior year. I should have been a homeschooled kid. I was bouncing off the walls. The way my brain with ADD and dyslexia, I was not meant to sit there in a structured form and stare at the board and do everything linearly. That's not how
Yep.
my brain worked. And the impact that had on me was far more damaging than my grades were, being made to feel bad, being made to feel wrong, being made to feel dumb. Overcoming that as an adult was way more negatively impacting than the school grades were, than not knowing math. Because the reality is, I read this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
Great book.
and then watched some documentaries with that. And this woman, Barbara Corcoran, she was on Shark Tank. If anybody ever watched that show, I heard her say, I was not good with numbers and all these deals I would do would fail. And then I did one deal where I brought in an expert with numbers and we killed it. And that moment taught me I can do anything in this world that I want to if I have a passion for it, if I can enroll people with their own unique skills. If somebody's really good with numbers, I'm going to find that person, right? So I'm now the least educated person on my team building from the farm, but I've surrounded myself with college graduates that know how to program or know how to run the numbers, or that's the adaptability side. And so that's why I tell these teachers, I don't care about their grades. I care if they're trying to do the work, but I often don't care about that so much if their like brains are all over the place and you want them under these fluorescent lights to focus on running through some workbook for, a whole hour and a half. It's boring. And my kids are not built that way. So you're not going to make my kids feel wrong about that. They didn't really appreciate their parent teacher meetings with me. But then as soon as I could, we were out and we're like, okay, here's the curriculum.
No, and it's definitely said it's hard because a lot of the times, like you said, in the society we're in, both parents do have to work. But also what I found since starting this nonprofit is, when people are questioning whether or not to homeschool, like, hey, can I educate my kids? I always like to think you went through that education system and you're questioning if you can teach them. That
Yep.
means it didn't do well. You
Yep.
can do it better at the house with focusing on different things. And for me, I like people to focus on skills that are actually going to apply in the workforce, whether it's not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? Me, myself, we run a marine service business. We work on yachts and boats. So my
Yep.
brother and I both dropped out of college and started this business. But you can still focus on traits that allow you to go into an organization. If your kid is good with numbers, being that guy for Barbara, to where that is going to be, they can zone in on one thing they're good at and just become a master at it compared to the school system where they're going to go through 7 different classes throughout the week, and it's just all nonsense, useless information compared to homeschooling. Now you're able to focus in, and your kid also can, oh, I'm interested in this, or I think I'm good at this. They can put all that extra time into it and not have to worry about all the useless information that's kind of just government chosen of what we're going to learn that has no application in the world we live in today.
That's right.
You
Yep.
know?
Yeah. I couple of key things for me that was profound in my own self-development from mentors, right? I got into mentorship as I got older. And I think that's probably one of the most important things. So you can accelerate your learning with mentors because they've done it. They've tried it. And then they can help you really zero in on the things they've learned. And one of those is kind of a saying, a mantra that I created for myself, which is I'm brilliant beyond measure, because my entire development years, I was being measured A, B, C, D, F. I was
Mhm.
measured on a scale. So I had to a mentor helped me create this mantra of all these areas where I was judging myself, different areas of life, my spirituality, my personal relationships, and then about myself personally. And this thing that was in my head was I'm dumb, I'm not educated, I'm not smart enough. Like just this, our subconscious is the captain of our ship, and our subconscious only knows what we tell it, right? And so, but there's this thing called autosuggestion. Autosuggestion is saying, and comes from Napoleon Hill's teachings, but my
Yes, sir.
mentors are really one who helped me, nail this down. Whatever you speak out loud, your subconscious is hearing and it's kind of taking notes. Okay, I'm dumb. I'm an idiot.
Yep.
I'm not smart. So you create these new mantras in these areas and you speak them out loud over and over and over again. It was the first thing I did when I woke up. I read this whole declaration I created for myself the moment I woke up, and it was the last thing I read when I went to bed. So autosuggestion is reprogramming the subconscious mind. So now I'm not dumb. I'm brilliant beyond measure. And for me, that meant what the school system told me about myself. And so that was something that was really profound. The other thing was the meaning of failure, changing what the meaning of failure means. Like in school, if you got an F, you failed and now you're a bad person. But when or some sense of that, I'm an idiot, I'm not smart. But failure is just learning. So if you really help your kids understand that aspect, failure is not a bad thing. Failure is actually amazing. Go out and fail fast and fail hard, because then you say, and then when you do, take a step back and say, what did I learn from that? Right? If you play sports, it's the same thing. If you get your butt kicked, the coach is going to go over the game with you and say, this happened, and they're going to help you be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do that differently. The more you fail and then you pick yourself back up and you go after it again, that whatever caused you to fail that first time won't be what has you fail the next time. The distinction of success was one of the most important things I learned. The distinction of the success is the ability to go from one failure to the next quickly, That's the key word, quickly. When we fail, the longer we sit there and lick our wounds and feel sorry for ourselves, that's not success. But if I can fail hard and fail fast and be like, cool, failed, next. Okay, now what's next? Okay, now what's next? You're eventually going to get there, but you
Yep.
have to move quickly. The longer you waste before you're willing to give it another shot, the harder it becomes.
No, there's a couple of things I want to reiterate there because also with that auto suggestion, I read this thing where when it comes out of our mouth out loud, whatever that thought is, whatever that phrase is actually 7 times more powerful compared to just keeping it on the inside. So when we say it out loud, even if it's in a joking manner, which I'll joke every now and then, like, oh, I'm stupid, whatnot. But even that is not good because it's 7 times more powerful to your subconscious mind than it is just thinking it. And then the second thing is with the subconscious. My brother, I wish I will say out loud, is the better looking, smarter one. You know what I mean? But he has this thing. He explains it as like you said, the subconscious is the captain, right? And
Yep.
if it's like I said, we live in South Florida, we work on boats. If you're running a big ship, the captain doesn't. If he says, "I want to go here," he says the destination he wants to go. He lets the crew handle everything else. My brother likes to say, "Tell your subconscious, you know, this is where I want to go," and then don't worry because all those things that you've experienced throughout your life that you've watched, all those things are still registered in your subconscious mind. If you tell it exactly where you want to go, it'll start doing the work like the crew will, and it's going to put you right there. You know what I mean? And then the
Yep.
third thing you said was the failure thing. I'll tell you what, when we started working on boats, man, I grew up in Loxahatchee, which is a small town in Florida, like almost an hour off the coast. We didn't grow up on boats. We grew up freshwater fishing, riding four wheelers, running in the woods. We would say, you know what, we're gonna do it. We understand we don't know nothing, so we're gonna fail when it comes to getting jobs. We're gonna fail when it comes to doing jobs. But we understood that hey, the quicker we can learn this stuff or the quickest way we can learn this stuff is going to be by failing through it. So we was upfront with the customers. Hey, I've never done this before. This is new. I'm willing to give you a nice discount. We want to learn. We have enough knowledge so we're not going to sink your boat or anything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it
Yep.
was understanding that hey, the quicker we can go through the failure process, the sooner we'll be able to be up and running. And we were able to book our schedule, man, after 2.5 months. We were working full-time construction at the same time. And but because we were able just to blow through all of it and then say, that's a lesson. Oh, this scratches the gel coat. Okay, well, don't do that. That's the lesson. Well, the new lesson is how do I fix that mistake? Okay, boom.
Yep.
And it's a matter of actually putting yourself there. And that's another thing I try to encourage the parents to do is don't shelter them from failure. Allow them to go out there with that idea and fall flat on their face and just let you just be the person that's got him saying, hey, that is the best thing that could happen to you because now you know. Don't touch that hot stove. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it's
Yep.
the best thing for you. Um, so as far as entrepreneurship, obviously you're an entrepreneur. I can tell with like even the things you're saying. What do you think are some things the parents can do when it comes to getting their kids to adapt that mindset? Because for me, I feel like even if your kid's not going to be the business owner one day, like I said before, they're still going to learn by having a business, starting a business, running it as a kid, the skills that it takes to step into a business and become an asset to that business. Because again, with the way our world is changing, employees are going to be the most valuable ones are going to be the ones that stay around. The ones that are just 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, technology, and then I think personally, robotics in the next couple of years will replace them unless they're an asset to the company. What are some things homeschooling parents can do, you think, to where their kid understands and opens them up to that mindset of, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be an asset, or I'm going to be the guy that's running this machine?
Yeah. Fundamentals like understanding the ego and the ego's role, and how to question the ego, right? Is one because if they want to be the man or the woman and be the person on top, but that it requires a team to run, they've got to
Right.
know kind of how to be a team player, and then also that your word is your bond, right?
Mm.
That I think is probably more important than the ego. If you commit, you deliver, you do it, and then when that project is over, then you create a new agreement, and move on if you need to. Like maybe it was somewhere you didn't really feel you wanted to be forever, but don't just bail on the team right away. Finish it out, see it through, so that you are true to your word. Because when you when a child develops this idea that they can just go from place to place to place to place, it becomes really hard to become somebody that can be not just that people can count on, but that's where the subconscious training comes in. They are training themselves that they can't be counted on, and they may not even see that. And so, because we are who we are everywhere we show up, with our families, with our friend groups, with, you know, whatever, we're still the same person. And if we develop this internal subconscious dialogue that nobody can count on me because I'm always in and out, and I told somebody I was going to do this and then I didn't finish, well, I'm going to carry that on without even knowing that I'm doing that. And then you get into your relationships with your spouse, and then you have your kids, and that will show up in every area of your life because it's all connected. It's who you are. So understanding your ego and how to, you know, how to work with it. You're not going to get rid of your ego, but you can definitely identify it and be aware of it. So understanding that aspect of it. And then also, again, your word is your bond. There's a really good book called The Four Agreements
Okay.
that I highly recommend to people. It really helps you understand that side of it. To just be committed to your word, and you may commit to something and it's miserable, but it's going to pass. So stick it out. Be who you are. Be your word until it's over, and then create a new agreement. What that might mean, hey, you know, really appreciate the opportunity. We got this project done. It's now time for me to move on. But that way you're developing an awareness of who you are as an individual, and you're not going to carry this baggage forward in the next thing that you move into.
No, I love that. And that definitely, about September of last year, man, we took a bottom sanding job on a boat. We thought it was gonna take a week. We thought we were gonna go in this job, like we're about to make so much money. Man, it took us a month and a half. We lost so much money during the job. You know what I mean? And my
Yep.
employees kept being like, why don't you call the guy and tell him that this is gonna be more money? Why are you taking this loss? And I was like, because I looked the man in the eye. I told him it was going to be no more than this money. It's not his fault that I quoted it wrong. If I was experienced and I gave him a number, yeah, different story. Because I could have told him beforehand, hey, this price is subject to change. But I told this man it's going to be $12,000, and it's not his fault. But being a man of your word, I also like what you said there about how subconsciously is teaching them. That's going to give a kid confidence in the future,
Yeah.
knowing that if he puts something down to, he's going to see it through. And it is going to
Yep.
transfer. It's going to transfer over to their family life. It's going to transfer over to their relationships. But I think most importantly is when they look themselves in the mirror, they're going to understand that, hey, if anything, when I'm on something, then I'm on it. I want to be respectful of your time, man. So is there any last words that you want to say, and anywhere else that we can kind of, oh, sorry, one last thing before you get off. What was the name of that curriculum your friend made?
I'll text it to you guys because I can't remember it.
Perfect. No
Her
worries.
name's Lori. Her husband's actually the former president of the WCW, Eric Bischoff.
No
And
way.
the two of them together, they're just incredible. And he's actually the one that I was speaking to about the carnivore diet. The dude's a monster now. So
Heck yeah.
phenomenal
Hey,
people. Her name's Lori Bischoff. So I'll get her curriculum to you, but it's phenomenal.
and last thing, when you send us that, go ahead and send us any links that you got so we can go ahead and push the families over in your direction, man. AJ,
I
dude, I
will. Yeah.
appreciate your time so much today, man. That was nice talking what you do.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you
very
guys.
much.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
Thanks for all
you.
you're doing. Yep. We'll see
Have a
you.
good one, brother.
Bye.
Bye.